Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Show Me the Crypto. This week we chat with Aaron Kong, who is growth and strategy lead at Osmosis Labs. Ulf, what did you think of this episode?
You know, we haven't had a guest on yet who was a part of a project on the Cosmos ecosystem. And so to dive in and get to do this sort of Cosmos 101, where we really got to ask a lot of questions to understand what Cosmos is all about, what Cosmos is and what Cosmos isn't, as well as then moving on to Osmosis, which is sort of the DEX leader within the Cosmos ecosystem. We covered everything from, you know, what is Cosmos through to getting to know Osmosis well. So it was very informative. And I think if you're unfamiliar with Cosmos or if you're already a fan, this is going to be a great episode for you.
Yeah, well said. And sometimes, or I should say a lot of our episodes have focused kind of within the Ethereum ecosystem, but Ulf and I are big believers that, you know, it's important in this space to keep an eye on other projects, what's going on. Even though we do focus a lot of our content on Ethereum, there's a lot of people playing in different areas of the blockchain space. So this is a great episode, a great 101 conversation with Aaron. We hope you enjoy it.
Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Aaron Kong, growth and strategy lead at Osmosis Labs, which is the core team responsible for developing Osmosis, an appchain and decentralized exchange that serves as the DeFi hub for the Cosmos ecosystem. Outside of crypto, Aaron is also passionate about video games, and he, along with his team, were once ranked #1 in the world at World of Warcraft. Aaron, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you. Kind of forgot that put the World of Warcraft thing as one of my intros.
Well, though, you know what? You didn't actually. Where I found that was on another podcast you were on, kind of deep into the interview. You started talking about this. And listen, our audience, we're excited about this because we haven't had the opportunity to dive into obviously Osmosis or even Cosmos. We have no episodes that are kind of on Cosmos. So this is going to be a great 101 conversation to teach our audience about this ecosystem. But before we do that, we have to start with #1 in the world at World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How does that happen? Can you walk us through that story?
So World of Warcraft, for people that don't understand like how there's a ranking, it's essentially this massive multiplayer online video game. There's a whole world in it, World of Warcraft. And people have different sectors. They go in and go into raids, and these raids can be like 40 people teaming up and coordinating and going to tackle a single boss, which is not too different as far as you have a team of 40 people in crypto and you're coordinating, and everything needs to work like a well-oiled machine to execute and go to market and release new products. But so World of Warcraft has this sector of like raids. Some people just want to enjoy their time and just like go on quests and just do basic things and gather herbs and maybe make some money. But also there's a PvP sector, and PvP is just player versus player, which is the most competitive side, and it has the most people and less barriers to entry. So like PvP, you only need a team of 2 people, 3 people, or 5 people to go into arena, which is like the most competitive. And in arena, you basically just duke it out 3v3, 5v5, 2v2. And this is what the competitive scene looks like. Now, it's not to say like raiders don't compete with other raiders. These are like guilds that bond together and just like try and be the first. It's called like world first So to be the world first to tackle a dungeon, a raid. But the PvP side is like the highly competitive side that is essentially like super elite players where they're just min-maxing everything and all their skills to basically just crush each other. So the arena side, the PvP side is what I was essentially rank 1 in the world for around a year and a half or so with my team.
How big was your team then? Were you one of these like 5-person teams or 3-person teams?
So the 3v3 was what we specialized at, and that was just 3 or 4 of us, and you would like mix and match the composition. Sometimes like you can play just like different compositions of like characters, basically like different like imagine like combining a lawyer, a doctor, and a teacher together, or maybe it would flip to be like a lawyer, doctor, and a police officer or something. You just like kind of change the jobs, and then certain combinations do better against certain compositions as well. So you kind of like, you see like who's playing at what time of the day, and you try and counter them sometimes. Or if you're just good, you just don't care. And like if they try and counter you and you're just better, you just crush them with your composition that might not be better than their composition.
So do you still, do you spend a lot of time gaming still? And at that time, what was your routine like in terms of like daily, like to maintain that number 1 ranking?
Yeah, so I don't play much anymore. Video games in general, one is like, it's very time consuming, but 2, it's also, I think like all my favorite games just kind of went to crap. World of Warcraft isn't what it used to be. Maybe I got older, but I would say that the developers just kind of tanked it, or the direction they took just kind of made it more for people that aren't as serious about it. It's not as rewarding. But my daily routine back then, I was in college. It's like probably 12 years ago, 2010 to 2011-ish is when I was like at my peak in World of Warcraft. And basically I would wake up, go straight to the gym, work out, go get like 4 boxes of food, and then just game the rest of the night.
That's awesome.
Incredible. Okay, let's jump into crypto. And you had mentioned there, like kind of the similarity in the sense of, just like in crypto, you got a team working on something. So at what point did you discover the crypto space, and what did that come through? And when did Cosmos land on your radar?
So in 2017, I was moving to Tokyo, and before I moved, I got into crypto. I like started FOMOing into like ETH at like $30, or like Bitcoin was at 1,200 back then. And then, I just really am always excited about technology, and kind of coming from like a gaming world, you can kind of see how these things can potentially have a future. You can see how like this economy in a video game has all these aspects, whether it's like an auction house, like a real world trading marketplace, whether you're communicating with people, whether you're going through a raid and actually acquiring loot, and this loot is bound to your account. These are all like things that can kind of relate to crypto, because whether it's like your wallet and you have an NFT or a soul-bound NFT, or you're transacting and you're trading, these things can't really be fudged unless the game itself or like the servers like go bust, or like, somehow someone hacks it, which, relates to crypto as well. But the digital world always has been something that has interested me. So when I moved to Japan, I basically like dove into crypto, and, there was like Bitcoin.com based in Shibuya, Tokyo. And like, I would always go to their meetups and meet them. And this isn't like, I know like Bitcoin.com is like, historically a lot of people are either for or against it, and like Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin Core. And, I just was eager to get into the crypto community. Back in like 2018, early on, I believe that's when, Atom Cosmos Hub was like getting developed, and it was like also like these communications with the Mise Go community, which that one tanked as well. But, that's where I kind of got into crypto from a starting point.
And so we're going to get into everything Osmosis Labs later in the conversation. But before we do, because this is our first conversation on the show with someone who's in the Cosmos ecosystem, we'd love to start with more just around Cosmos itself and better understand, what this blockchain and what this ecosystem is all about. So I'll just give it to you. Very simple. What is Cosmos?
So I think one thing to clear would be what Cosmos is not. The Cosmos is not really comparable to Polkadot, and people like try to make these comparisons where like Polkadot's like a layer 0 and it has all these layered ones on top of Polkadot, like Moonbeam and Akala and I guess I forget some of the other ones, but I did partake in a lot of the those auctions. But basically, like, you know, without Polkadot, Moonbeam would not exist, and without Cosmos Hub, the chain with the native coin Atom, everything else can still exist. So it's not the same. It's not like a hub and spoke. It's more like this mesh, group of blockchains that are just conveniently able to connect with each other. So the way everything in the Cosmos can connect to each other is because they're built up on this SDK, and it has this technology called IBC. And this technology, IBC, Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, is, think about how shipping ports work. So whether there's a shipping port in Shanghai or Brazil or San Francisco, these shipping ports, they all work with each other the same way because they have this same size shipping container, and the boats and ships that transfer these containers all are built to transport the same size things, or they're all modular. So you go over to Shanghai, you pick up some containers, and you drop it off in San Francisco. It works. They don't necessarily need to speak the same language. I mean, they probably they have the same lingo in the shipping world, I'm sure. Like, just like in crypto, we have like lingo that we understand and other people don't. I'm sure that, the shipping industry, people in China may not be speaking fluent English, but they know the code and they know the word. And basically they just ship things back and forth. And there's no difficulty there because the ports are built to handle this generalized standard of shipping. For Cosmos, that is why all these chains can connect with each other so seamlessly. So if one chain goes down, I mean, I'm sure it'll be relevant, but they're not dependent on each other. So Cosmos is basically this ecosystem of chains that can connect with each other seamlessly through the technology of IBC, but every single chain is its own chain and it's not dependent on other chains. But there is more technology coming out as well where you can plug into other chains and be dependent. But that, that's like, something more advanced, and we can get into that later as well.
You had mentioned early there SDK. What is that?
So an SDK is just a software development kit, and the Cosmos SDK is what Cosmos chains can use to basically develop up and basically use it as a starting kit, and they can customize their own blockchain. So these Cosmos chains will have a lot of similarities if teams choose to make, these base similarities their starting point, but it's customizable. So whether you want to, do something like on an EVM side, or you just want to have a generalized permissionless smart contract chain, or you want to do something that's more DeFi focused, or for some reason you want to have a chain that has faster block times, you can do that. And the nice thing here is that, again, because each chain is its own sovereign chain, its own layer 1, you're not dependent on something like Ethereum. So let's say like Uniswap is a protocol for DeFi on Ethereum. If Ethereum goes down, Uniswap goes down. But if the Cosmos Hub, Atom, goes down, Osmosis does not go down. And, that's why these things are kind of valuable, because it's connected, but it's not dependent.
So does Cosmos compete with other blockchains, or is it the opt-in connective tissue between how these other blockchains can interoperate? How do they view, or how does Cosmos, the community, the ecosystem, view itself in the world of all these other blockchains?
So the Cosmos community kind of views itself as the end game for how crypto should be. So I think one of the most important things in crypto is just the ability to seamlessly do something through and in chains. And this is why people in Cosmos choose to build on Cosmos, is because it's so customizable. Yet through your customizability, you still have no issues connecting through everything in the ecosystem. So you can't really customize things as well in Ethereum. And you are at the whim of bridges and technologies that are on Ethereum. You can't just spin up your own technology on Ethereum unless it's already implemented through Ethereum. So I think the Cosmos ecosystem just sees this as a more natural way for the crypto community to gravitate towards over the period to come, which is happening. So Cosmos is the fastest growing ecosystem right now. Last year, there were only a handful of chains. Now there are over 55, I believe. And by the end of the year, this should be around 100. There's a lot of funding going into the Cosmos ecosystem as well. Lots of very hype projects are also launching soon. And the more things that are in this very interoperable ecosystem, the faster the Cosmos ecosystem can grow. So I think the community just thinks that it's just a natural way to go because there are less barriers and there's more customizability. So like, why would you not go for less barriers and more customizability?
One of the things we've talked about quite a bit on this show is maximalism. On a lot of episodes, we talk about it because no matter who our guest, we have a lot of guests who are kind of focused on building on Ethereum. There's a few that are Bitcoiners, but we always like to get their take, right? Of just kind of like where their thoughts are at in terms of maximalism. Whereas Cosmos seems like the opposite of maximalism with the focus on interoperability. Is that a fair characterization? And I guess why is interoperability so important?
So I understand the concept of maximalism here. I don't think I'm a Cosmos maximalist. I think each ecosystem, well, many of the large ones have their place and they will continue to exist for a reason. But I think anyone in the Cosmos, their maximalist sentiment is just going to be why it's such a logical thing to do. So it's like, it's not that, this bet on, the Cosmos is because it's any specific chain. It's just the technology. It's like more interoperability, it's seamless and it's more customizable. And why would you not bet on something like logical like that? I think a lot of people that choose to build on Ethereum or let's say like Solana is because they feel that there's so much over there already. There's so much of a market share. There are so many retail users that by, building on something that's relatively new, they're taking a risk on something that's new. And they feel like, let's say they pitch to investors or pitch to institutions or retail, and these people aren't necessarily educated on the Cosmos, they'll maybe not invest. And that's why they want to do something like Solana or Ethereum. So yeah, I guess, maximalism here. I don't think the Cosmos has too much of that because really, most people have their bags and their bets in the Cosmos and they might be maximalists on their specific chain and they might, FUD or promote certain chains. But generally for Cosmos as a whole, I think people just are very aware of the technology and that is just the right way to go.
So you just mentioned a couple times, it's so customizable. There's so many options. So what, and you said, well, why wouldn't they build here? So that's my question back to you is what are, there's got to be some reasons beyond just maybe the popularity and the history of other chains. What are the potential drawbacks? Is there anything around scalability or security or things that maybe would cause someone to stop and pause when they're making the decision around whether they want to build on Cosmos or not?
Sure. As far as scalability, I don't think that is a concern of most people. So let's go back to when Terra was collapsed. So Terra was a chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. Largely, they went like the monolithic style where everything was just kind of being built on Terra, and all these crazy DeFi apps were being built out. And their ecosystem was huge. And one of the reasons is, well, obviously, they just had a ton of funding through printing of funds, but the other reason is just because it was so easy to build and plug into the Terra ecosystem. Now, one of the big themes and big takeaways for the Cosmos technology as Terra was kind of collapsing is that the chain never failed during this collapse. So whether it's just trillions of dollars and, volume or all these transactions is probably the most volume heavy day in history of crypto was the Terra collapse. The chain never failed. Now, I think it did halt on purpose at a point. Don't quote me on that, please. But the chain never failed. And that's kind of a testament and a true, kind of just like a real world test case that the technology can hold up. As far as security goes, it's not going to be as secure as like Bitcoin. Obviously, nothing is. But, so far the security has yet to be an issue. And as far as security goes, I'm not the expert on that, but I think that with everyone building and making their bets on Cosmos and, all the funding and the teams building up, there's a logical reason they're doing that. And the security is quite sound.
So let's transition to Osmosis and Osmosis Labs. Can you walk us through how did this come about and what specifically is Osmosis?
So the way Osmosis came about was essentially, formerly there was a group called Tendermint or AIB, and AIB stands for All in Bits. And this group was building the technology for the Cosmos ecosystem. There came a point where a lot of the Osmosis founding team members, they wanted to do more. They wanted to basically build out a chain that could connect and be the center of the Cosmos ecosystem so that all these chains that we're going to be building on the Cosmos ecosystem had a way to, get liquidity or plug in and interrupt with something that had the DeFi center already there. So right now, Osmosis is essentially the DeFi center for the Cosmos ecosystem. It has the deepest liquidity. It also has the most development on it. And Osmosis at the same time even continues to develop and fund a lot of public goods for the whole ecosystem. So basically, we're really focused on one, building out Osmosis as this DeFi center. And two, on top of that, we also focus on making sure that the Cosmos ecosystem has a lot of tooling available. So whether it's like a project like Cosmology, it's a company based in San Francisco, and the founder of Cosmology is based in San Francisco, but he's building a lot of tooling with his team that everyone in the Cosmos ecosystem can plug into. And there's just a lot of infrastructure being built as well. So all these new teams and builders come into the ecosystem, they have these tools available so they can easily spin up. And whether it's like a new lending protocol that doesn't have liquidity, they can plug into Osmosis. Whether it's a brand new chain, let's say Neutron is launching relatively soon and they need liquidity, they can use technology that Osmosis has built to have swaps on their chain without ever leaving their chain, but using the liquidity in Osmosis. So these are all tools that we're building out and providing to the greater Cosmos ecosystem.
And just to dive in a little more into sort of like how Osmosis works and maybe what sets it apart in comparison to more traditional DEXs or those that are like very popular in the scene, maybe in like the world of Ethereum. You think of Uniswap, SushiSwap, some of those more well-known DEXs. What are some of the key differences and unique features of Osmosis?
So I think the unique features here, we would be going back to the technology behind it, not necessarily the code of the DeFi protocols or the dApps that are built on Osmosis. So like right now, the Osmosis blockchain has a few DeFi dApps built on it. Originally, the first native would be the general DEX, which is, just like the V2 style. By V2, I mean like Uniswap V2, basically just these traditional balanced pools that you can swap through and you can earn incentives on. But right now, the Osmosis blockchain also has a lot more DeFi dApps built onto it. So there's Mars lending protocol. There's Apollo Vault, Quasar Vault. there are also perpetuals launching quite soon, and that's being built by Levana. And there are index funds being built out by other teams. There are DCA protocols being built out, a dollar cost average. And all these things are being built out because, it's one, like we work with these teams and like provide them and foster them to be able to build out and all their technical support. We provide these things, but two, also there needs to be sufficient liquidity for a lot of these dApps that want to launch. But again, back to the main differences between something like Uniswap and Osmosis. If Ethereum goes down, Uniswap is dead. If the Cosmos Hub goes down, Osmosis still lives. So basically, we control and customize our blockchain, but the Uniswap protocol, it has no control over Ethereum, unless, they're talking to the, Ethereum Foundation or something. But, that's just not how it works.
So Aaron, I'm curious about what your relationship or Osmosis Labs relationships like with even just the Cosmos founders and the greater community in general. I mean, are you guys kind of like the golden child in terms of the fact that you are this hub and that you're helping other aspects of the ecosystem? Or how's that relationship and how what you're doing is viewed throughout Cosmos?
Yeah, so Osmosis is definitely viewed in the Cosmos ecosystem as probably the main leader, largely because a lot of the founders of Osmosis came from the original development team for the Cosmos technology and ecosystem. The Cosmos Hub blockchain, native coin Atom, it doesn't have a leading development team. So a lot of the development for the Cosmos Hub is just built out by random community members. Osmosis still contributes to that in some senses. There are teams like Notional based in Vietnam. They contribute to the Cosmos Hub. There are also teams that are still working on the Cosmos SDK to, improve on that. And there are random contributors on teams like Delphi Lab. So the Cosmos Hub is pretty decentralized when it comes to the contribution and development of it. But again, the Osmosis kind of role in the Cosmos ecosystem is that it's been founded by people that came from the original development team of the Cosmos Hub. And we still contribute to these public goods fundings. And a lot of the Cosmos ecosystem looks to Osmosis to continue to pave the way for the future of the Cosmos ecosystem. But lots of teams in the Cosmos ecosystem have lots of development going for them, and they are also paving the way in their own way as well. So it's not like Osmosis is doing everything alone. This community is very well connected, and we work with countless teams to, brainstorm ideas such as mesh security. And I guess I can get into mesh security. It's mesh security is this idea where smaller chains that may not have much economic security to it, they can plug in and get some security from a chain with higher economic security. So let's say a chain with a market cap of 10 or 20 million, and they want to plug in and use the security from Osmosis or even the Cosmos Hub. They can plug in a portion of their security to Osmosis, and it's this bilateral security. So the vision here is think of NATO and how all these countries are connected by the NATO alliance. And the USA is, maybe 100 times bigger than a country somewhere in Europe, a small country. I don't want to list a random country.
I'm going to point out us.
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know to call you on it anyway. Yeah. So
yeah, let's just say the smallest NATO country, but they still have the security of NATO, and they're backed by NATO. So mesh security is kind of like that, where all these small chains, and there's no reason big chains can't use it either. They can plug into mesh security, and they have this bilateral security agreement in a sense with all these other chains. And again, the idea is it's not just plugging into a larger chain and only using that larger chain. There's a bilateral, relationship here. And these are the things that the Cosmos ecosystem is working on together. So, a lot of these teams and projects, they know that by working together and having, better ways to secure the entire ecosystem as a whole, it will lift the cosmos as a whole. Rising tide raises all boats. So all this public tooling, all these things that are neutral will facilitate the cosmos's growth as well. And there will be plugins in the future for mesh security. So if you want to use Bitcoin's security to secure the Cosmos ecosystems, networks, whether you're a small chain or a large chain, you can also do that in the future. Or if you want to do something similar to like how Eigen does their security, we can also plug that in down the road to mesh security as well. And right now, on top of mesh security, there's also interchain security, which is more a hub and spoke relationship type of security. But that's going to be using the Cosmos Hub's security. So a random chain that has no validators, and validators essentially just secure the network. Without any validators, these new chains are like, what do we do? Do we want to take the time and like get all these validators running? And this is kind of like a bandwidth thing. And new chains may not want to do this, and maybe that's why they want to plug into something like Ethereum. They don't have to deal with validators and have their own blockchain. What they can do is just plug into interchain security and have all their validators just be the validators on the Cosmos Hub. And they can have their security be the same as the Cosmos Hub. But this is also going to play into mesh security down the road, where if you really want to, you can just plug into a single chain on mesh security. Or you can just launch eventually down the road by using the security through multiple chains in mesh security. So basically, like, mesh security is kind of like the end game for security for the Cosmos ecosystem.
And maybe not totally related, but similar in how you're talking about chains interacting with other chains here, staying on that interoperability sort of focus. I'm wondering, how does Osmosis handle cross-chain swaps when you're, doing swaps on using the DEX? Is that different than how they work in some of the other? You've seen it become fairly popular recently, where a lot of new DEXs are offering this as a feature. Now, this might be a little different when we're talking about maybe it's only within some of like the Ethereum ecosystem, and it seems like there's smaller groupings of chains available to swap to. But what are some of the differences with Osmosis's approach to cross-chain swaps, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I think, we should maybe tackle like the base idea of cross-chain swaps. And I think it's kind of obvious with its naming. So it's just swapping something, across at least two chains. So the reason why Cosmos ecosystems cross-chain swaps are probably a lot better is because everything is connected via IBC, again, the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, shipping containers, right? So we actually just released a product called Cosmos Swap, and it is live, but we haven't started pushing it out yet, but many projects will be utilizing it. And Cosmos Swap is just essentially where you can have an outpost of the Osmosis DEX anywhere in the Cosmos ecosystem. So any random brand new chain with zero liquidity, with maybe 5 users, they can launch Cosmos Swap and outpost on their chain. And one of their 3 brand new users can make trades or do any kind of DeFi, primitive like action on their chain without ever leaving their chain. So what happens is Cosmos Swap basically launches on this chain, this brand new chain, and it comes back to Osmosis, execute a swap however they want to do it, and it goes back to their chain without ever leaving their chain. So this is kind of like how we see the future of cross-chain swaps. Basically, just being able to, through one click, go as far as you want and come back without ever having to leave and without ever even seeing it potentially. So even if potentially the end game was where, let's say, like, you have an asset on Ethereum and you want to trade for some kind of asset way over on Avalanche, And the way you go about it is you can go from Ethereum and you go through Osmosis and you go to Avalanche and you come back to Osmosis and you go back to Ethereum. And you did like 6 transactions or maybe even more because you're probably trading through different protocols within each ecosystem without ever having to leave Ethereum. And that's like a true cross-chain swap.
Well, and it seems like another thing we talk about a lot on this show is how everything needs to get a little bit more simple before we can see some true mass adoption. Even things like, setting up wallets and whatnot for the average person. This is a confusing process. And so it's all about making it easier. So that's one really good example. One thing I'm curious about is, you talked about people within the Cosmos ecosystem have this belief that it's the inevitable future, that this is the way things are going. So for yourself, where do you see the tipping point being where more and more people are interacting on Cosmos with Osmosis? Is it just an education piece in terms of like awareness, getting people to start using it, or like when in time do you think that tipping point's really going to happen?
I imagine it's all the variables combined. So as you said, like education. So the reason Cosmos is one of the fastest growing ecosystem is because the education is growing out there. But the more people that learn, the more people that are in the ecosystem, and they generally tend to not leave. It's not like they might not partake in other ecosystems as well. Like, all my bets are pretty much Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Osmosis. So it's not like, I'm not aware of partaking in other ecosystems at all, but, I'm never going to be leaving the Cosmos ecosystem either. But on top of education, I think, the more people that come over and they don't leave, the more people that'll gravitate, right? It's gravity effect. So on top of that, the more people that are building on the Cosmos ecosystem, it just attracts more people over. So the reason like how Solana just boomed is because, or even Terra boomed, it started small and then it just kept growing and growing. And the more people that heard about it, the more people that were building on it, the more people that get attracted to it, right? So this is kind of like, the Cosmos year 2. Year 1 is just this brand new incubation phase where all these small projects are launching, but not many of them. Year 2, 2023 is where 100 different chains will all be connected, but separately sovereign will be, deployed. And then year 3 is probably going to be where all these new chains will see, where will things gravitate to? Who will the long-term leaders be? And basically, you'll kind of see where the future will be by year 3, I imagine.
You mentioned, the Cosmos ecosystem's blowing up and that it's the fastest growing and will be at 100 by the end of the year. So what are, if you were to just pick off some that maybe are recognizable names to some people, what are some of those more popular blockchains and apps that are within the Cosmos ecosystem right now?
Yeah. So I guess maybe I should start off with a few that are very recognizable, but people don't know are actually Cosmos SDK based. So Binance is, they built out their chain on the Cosmos SDK. They haven't chosen to enable IBC, but they could if they wanted to.
And just side question, because what would be the reason for that? Like, why would they choose not to?
So they might just want to keep their ecosystem insulated for some reason, and they, just don't want to, maybe, I don't want to speculate, but, if you open up the doors, people can potentially leave, but people can also potentially go into it. So, I think it's good to just stay open and let users, travel back and forth however they want. Crypto.com Kronos as well is Cosmos SDK based, obviously formerly Terra. There are a few other big ones that I'm drawing a blank on, but some of the more recognizable ones that are, known as Cosmos based would be, let's say like, there's Osmosis, there's Juno, there's Secret Network, there's Injective that's been, quite popular lately. Some of the popular ones that are launching quite soon would be like Say Network. The most famous narrative of them all in the cosmos is dYdX is moving to Cosmos. And dYdX is one of the largest DeFi protocols in Ethereum and one of the most successful without a question. And they're perpetuals based DApp, but they feel limited in their long-term growth by Ethereum. So they're launching on the Cosmos ecosystem as well. And that should be sometime later this year. No dates promised yet, I believe, but that's, kind of a testament, one of the most successful dApps on Ethereum are moving over, and they're actually partaking in Osmocon as well. That'll be in July in Paris.
Well, obviously, I got to ask you a little bit about Osmocon, so maybe we'll start there. But I did want to, you can follow up. I'm wondering what some of the notable projects are that are building on Osmosis, because you did mention a few already: Mars Protocol, Quasar Finance. So maybe you can touch on some of those types of projects as well.
Yeah, so Mars Protocol is essentially, it is its own layer 1 blockchain, but their dApp is something that is launched on Osmosis. So they have, again, their layer 1 blockchain, and this is more like governance and direction of what direction the developers want to take, and the community kind of votes on it. So they can, through their governance, approve new assets to be added to their lending protocol, whether it's like, from the get-go is like USDC, Atom, and Osmosis or Osmo. And then enabled after that would be like, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum. So that's what they use their governance for, but they launched their dApp on other chains. So they first launched on Osmosis, and then they'll launch on a few other chains as these other chains gain liquidity. There's Quasar, again, it's another DeFi primitive. And basically, they have vaults where you can just earn incentives through different strategies. There's Axelar, which is it's a layer 1 that provides, bridging services. So Axelar is the largest bridging provider in the Cosmos ecosystem. They, if you want to move from Ethereum to Osmosis or anywhere else in the Cosmos ecosystem, you can use Axelar. If you want to go through Polygon or Avalanche or Phantom, and there's a long list of chains that they've enabled, and I guess some other apps building on Osmosis. I guess we should go back. You were initially asking about chains, not specific apps, right?
No, I'm just curious, what projects are building on Osmosis in general. So yeah, I mean, you're nailing it.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of these projects, they're not necessarily only building on Osmosis,
right?
But they're building on Osmosis first, just because there's, far more liquidity, and it's kind of the obvious starting place for a lot of these chains. And a lot of these projects choose to launch their coin initially on Osmosis, because one, the listing of coins is permissionless. So, whether it's, a brand new project like Neutron or Say or dYdX or Lavana, their token can be on Osmosis right away, or just random shit coins as well. We don't block that. And I guess some more chains that are popping up quite soon, or I guess projects that are building on Osmosis. We even work pretty closely with Kato, which is like a fiat on-ramp provider, and they're working on some really exciting stuff. They'll make some announcements at Osmocon. Basically, it's just like taking, real world interoperability with the DeFi world to the next level. And then there'll be NFTs coming soon as well. So there's just a lot of projects building on Osmosis. And, this even goes as far as like tooling projects or infrastructure projects, smart contract projects that, want to make deploying smart contracts easier. These are, the ecosystem that's building on Osmosis is quite robust and just continues to grow.
So when it comes to Osmosis competitors, is something like dYdX, is that going to be a competitor for you then in terms of, you're the leader, the established leader, but this is a massive project coming over.
So they shouldn't be seen as a competitor. We actually work very closely with dYdX. Largely their focus is just perpetuals. So, they're not coming out to be just a DeFi hub. They're not coming out to, be some kind of like smart contracts platform. It's just perpetuals. So we're actually working with them again quite closely to enable this transmuter. And what this transmuter is essentially allowing their liquidity that comes over from Ethereum to be swapped perfectly one for one to native assets on the Cosmos ecosystem. So again, we work with them quite closely. We really want them to succeed. And we don't really see them as a competitor because they're not really aiming for the same things that we are. However, they would be competitors to other perpetuals projects that are going to be launching on Osmosis. And that's okay. I think the competition is good. It's welcomed. Well, maybe not by the other projects, but I think the ecosystem definitely welcomes it. And it's very good for the ecosystem to have competition.
So originally, I know that when the Osmo token launched, it was exciting, new token from Osmosis, but over time, there was room for improvement around the tokenomics, and that Osmo 2.0 has been announced. Can you maybe take us through some of that history in more detail, explain the situation, and what can we look forward to with Osmo 2.0?
Yeah, so a large thing is, that the community has been giving feedback on is that emissions can be quite high. And also we spent a lot of time working with a lot of teams kind of determining how much incentives should actually be going out to these, earners every day. And at the same time, how much liquidity do you actually need on chain to have sufficient liquidity for what these users need? The liquidity needs are much less than what we actually have. So, the current TVL total value locked can be much lower. And at the same time, going further, what is launching quite soon is called supercharged liquidity, which is our version of concentrated liquidity over on Uniswap. And instead of these pools that are perfectly balanced 50-50, these pools will be essentially, probably less liquidity because, again, we don't need as much liquidity, which also means that, there will be less rewards going out, but you can still have much higher capital efficiency because the pool is based on these ticks. And these ticks are essentially these small ranges, and you can determine your own range where you put your liquidity. And if it's in the active price point of these ticks, you'll be earning rewards in this range. So it's kind of like range bound earning. And this is the kind of like the end game for a lot of dexes. Uniswap has this as well. And then on top of that, after supercharged liquidity releases, we will be working on something called loot books. And loot books just stands for limit orders on tick. And basically, on top of placing your liquidity in one of these range boundaries, you can also place an order on one of the ticks. So this is just like a logical way to, really, one, maximize efficiency of your capital, but two, use that same tool to have another DeFi feature, limit orders. And limit orders are, one of the most common features in all of finance, not just like DeFi, but also TradFi, right? And it's kind of natural that, we would build this next, but we want to build it in a centralized way. So there will be also centralized, maybe not centralized, but there will be also non-native to the code limit orders. So Autonomy is a team building out limit orders on Osmosis as well, but we'll be building out our own that is deeper into the code. I think I just went on a tangent. What was the original question?
I was just asking about Osmo 2.0 and where that was getting to. Yeah,
that's right. Okay, so basically with all these new features that are rolling out, kind of the end game for Osmosis, not just cross-chain swaps, which is one of the greatest visions for Osmosis, but also just having as much capital efficiency on the DEX as possible. The whole reason for this like revamp of tokenomics is because we no longer need the incentives to spur growth. This is, kind of to bootstrap the original liquidity. It was very valuable. People came, people stayed. But now, to grow further, we want to reduce these emissions and really not just like throw away emissions needlessly. And basically what's happening is like Osmosis has a third inning where every year, kind of like the Bitcoin halvening, every year there'll be a third inning. But instead, this coming June 19th, probably, I don't think it's been determined the exact date yet, but instead of it being every single year, the duration of the third inning will just be doubled. So it'll either be 2 years or 1.5 years, I believe. So all those emissions that were going to be happening in 1 year will happen over a span of either 1.5 years or 2 years.
Well, Aaron, you've done such a good job of explaining everything related to Osmosis and also diving deep into Cosmos, which I'm sure this is very basic, kind of like 101 for you, but I think it's going to be really beneficial to our audience members, especially those who aren't familiar with the Cosmos ecosystem. And like you said, education's such a big piece here. So hopefully this is one of the onboarding channels for people to take a look and get interested. But I have to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, which is Osmocon coming this July. So what's that all about? Can you walk us through? Is it the first annual, or have you done this a few times?
So last year, Osmosis actually took over this conference that was going to be the Terra Expo. So this is right when like Terra was collapsing, and basically like they didn't go through with, naturally, like everything collapsed, like they're not going to have their event, right? So we kind of like stepped into it.
That would be a depressing event. Yeah.
It was actually really like tragic for Osmosis because there was like $500 million of UST on Osmosis.
Wow.
And that pretty much just wrecked a lot of the pools because these pools are paired to UST, right? So if UST goes to zero, the asset stuck to it goes to zero as well.
Wow.
So that was actually pretty tragic. Lesson learned in diversity, right? But, we hosted Osmocon year one in Texas, in Austin at the AT&T Center or hotel, I believe. This year, that'll be in Paris. And the website for Osmocon will just be www.osmocon.com. And that should be live in the next 2 or 3 days here. But, the whole idea of Osmocon is to show all these projects that are building on the ecosystem and what new things they're working on. And on top of that, we're going to have a boxing ring there, an inflatable boxing ring with kind of like fluffy gloves. So enough to have fun, but not enough to actually hurt anyone. Just let people on Twitter that are always like going out, come to the boxing ring and dude, get out. So, it should be really fun time, and we'll have an after party on boat on the river, like under the Eiffel Tower. So basically, anyone that comes to Osmocon, come learn about the projects that are booming on Osmosis and like building it, some really exciting stuff, and see the Cosmos Drama Resolver boxing ring, and then come to the after party after.
I love
Sounds
it.
like an amazing time.
Yeah. Perfect for, in a bear market, get the boxing ring there. People can get some aggression out. I love it. Well, Aaron, as I mentioned, this has been a great conversation. We like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3 questions we ask every single guest. It's a segment we call You Had Me at Crypto. Alpha's going to ask you those questions.
All right, Aaron, you ready? First question, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Favorite person to follow? So this is probably controversial, but there's this guy on the team I mentioned earlier, Notional, based in Vietnam. His name is Jacob Gadikian. And then it's more that he's such a spicy dude. Like, he calls out everyone, and he's like the most honest person. He's so transparent. He's just so entertaining to follow. He's also giga brain, so it's like he has an answer to everything. And often he'll just like bark into his Twitter videos, but also like he's a genius coder. So I love following him. Him and I were in Bali the other week, and we did like cold plunges together. He's just a really fun guy to follow.
Nice. I love it. All right. Second question. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
280K.
Love it. I love the like no hesitation specific answers, like right to the like, yeah.
And like it wasn't not 300, but it's close. It's getting there. Yeah. All right. Third question. What is the most underrated project in crypto? And not Osmosis.
Let me think. Overrated project. Honestly, like, what if it's an NFT project?
Sure.
There's an NFT project that everyone in the Cosmos ecosystem knows. It's called Bad Kids, and everyone has these profile pictures. It just looks like a child with a crayon drew them. But the Cosmos community has essentially rallied behind this project. But externally, I don't think anyone really knows about it yet outside of the ecosystem. But I think it just has such a strong, it's kind of like Lady Gaga, how she started up. She basically had this user or this fan base, not user base. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a user base, but they just wouldn't let her die. So even when like she wasn't popular, they stuck with her. They are loyal to her and they never gave up on her. And eventually, she blew up. So, it's kind of like, this Cosmos ecosystem, they are essentially never giving up on these bad kids. And it's likely to continue to grow is how I see it.
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, I love it.
Definitely first time we've heard about that, but sounds super cool. We'll have to check it out. Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining Ulf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.